and welcome to Christina Marie TV. I'm your host, Christina Marie Flores. Well, the question for tonight, how does a man who is a stockbroker on Wall Street end up becoming a bacon-entrepreneur in San Francisco? And what in the hell is a bacon-entrepreneur? May I please introduce to you Bill Horst. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Christina. Thanks for having me.
What is a bacon-entrepreneur? Please explain that to us.
Well, I think it's a made-up word, first off. I own the company Who's Your Daddy, Real Bacon Potato Chips. So what I did was I took bacon and created bacon potato chips. So hence the bacon-entrepreneur.
Now, when you're saying bacon potato chips, you're not talking about potato chips, a little bacon flavor sprinkled on. You're talking like big bam bacon potato chips.
Yep, real carnivore chips. You know, they
nice.
they are healthy dose of bacon in every single bag.
I like that.
Yep.
I like, but okay. Now let's go back a little bit because you're a stockbroker on Wall Street.
Right.
Now, you dreaming about potato chips while you're there, or how did this whole transition come from being a stockbroker in New York to San Francisco and Who's Your Daddy potato chips?
You know, that's a great question. You know, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. Both my parents owned their own businesses, so I was always drawn to small business and that sort of idea, and I really grew up in that type of environment. So I wasn't dreaming about becoming a bank entrepreneur in high school type of situation, but always knew I'd own my own business at some point, and it just, you know, the timing was right now here in San Francisco. So
well, to go back to the kitchen table and the dining room table and talking about this with your parents, so many people don't have parents that are entrepreneurs. They usually have parents that are 9 to 5. You know, they're used to this type of 9 to 5, going in the office, you know, serving time, doing your 30 years and everything. What is it like to grow up in a family where you can really create an idea and your parents are like, yeah, go for it, you can make that into anything you want? I mean, did you know how lucky you were?
You know, I didn't realize it at the time, although my house was always the most popular house on the street. Everybody wanted to be at my house. I think it's probably because my parents were away most of the time, though.
Okay, because they were busy with their own business.
Right. But it was very inspiring to be around. And, you know, I think I've said this many times before in the past to my friends, but I think a lot of families grow up talking about religion or politics or not talking about anything around the kitchen table. I grew up listening to my parents talking about marketing and sales and receivables, and, you know, it might not sound exciting, but it was really almost like an MBA at the dinner table, which was really exciting.
Yeah, and you know, that opportunity, so many people don't sit around the dinner table anymore with their kids, so they don't get to share or put that, you know, the kids get to know them more than just a parent, but as a business person, as you well were just saying, and everything. And what kind of qualities do you see in entrepreneurs that you don't see in everybody else? I mean, what were the qualities they instilled in you? You
know, they really instilled that you can do anything you want to do if you put your heart to it and you put your mind to it. They repeatedly told me that you know, you be the best person you can be. Go out there and do anything you want. You will be successful if you try and put yourself out there. And I think those are great qualities to instill in anybody as well. So, and they were living proof of it. You know, it wasn't an empty promise that they were saying. I mean, they were successful entrepreneurs in their own right. So,
what kind of businesses did they have?
My mom owned a frame shop, and my dad owned a slew of professional photo labs, actually.
Oh, that's nice. And they got together there.
Exactly. So, you know, they did. It was a very symbiotic relationship for the two. So it was great.
So, so when somebody has an idea and they say, you know, I want to make this into a business, what are the first steps that you go through? I mean, do you dream it? Did you actually visualize what they want to do and draw it down and then, you know, create it from that? Or what's the inception of an idea? You
know, that's a great question. I actually had a bunch of different ideas, and was really thinking about what do I do to take one to the next level. And so I actually looked at all of my ideas and thought to myself, well, which one seems to make the most sense for me right now, from a barrier to entry standpoint, marketing standpoint, time. And so I really looked at all those different components and deciding that, you know, bacon potato chips just makes a whole lot of sense. And they're really good, you know.
He has them right here. So, you know, keep talking. I'm just going to be munching on my chips. Yeah.
So you know, that was it. The very first step, I think, is looking at a market and looking at an idea.
Oh,
and nice, thank you. And thinking about, you know, about all those different things. Is it going to be successful? How much time am I going to be putting into it? Is this something I really want to be doing? Do I see myself doing this 5 years out? You know, what's the growth going to look like? How much time am I going to commit? What's my life balance going to be? My life-work balance going to look like?
Now, did you ever at the very beginning think, I'm not a chef, I've never been in restaurant school, I don't know anything about the food business, but damn it, I'm making potato chips.
I'm going to be bake entrepreneur.
Yeah, bake entrepreneur.
You know, I think that goes back to my parents, instilling that whole you can do anything mentality. You know, I think when I have a commercial kitchen now, and I go in there, there's a chef who was from French Laundry who's there. And so my first day, I literally didn't even know how to turn the commercial fryer on. And here I am, I had already, in essence, built this business, already had a following, and so it felt like my first day at school.
So now you built the business already. Now tell us about the Dolores Park thing, because I think that's just amazing, and I'll just keep chipping away here.
Sure.
These are really, really, really good.
So what happened is on July 3rd, I initially said to a buddy of mine, you know, I think I'm gonna give this a shot. And so I got everything, went on the internet, figured out, did a whole bunch of research on how to create potato chips, how to infuse them with the bacon flavor, and built a bunch of bags out, and just went to Dolores Park literally that Friday before July 4th. Everyone had the day off, and sold out within an hour, and sold out a bunch of them. And the reviews were just crazy immediately. People were going nuts for them.
Now, one person in particular, I'm sorry, I have food in my mouth. One person in particular that you ended up selling to actually was a food blogger.
That's correct.
And where from?
He is actually a food blogger here in San Francisco. He immediately blogged that evening, that Friday evening, and it was like a mushroom cloud after that. And then the food editor from SF Weekly contacted me, and within a week I had probably 6 or 8 articles written about me, a whole bunch of followers on Twitter. I mean, it popped so quickly, it was almost unbelievable.
That's incredible. And so at that point you go, gee, I better learn how to make these things.
Right. That's when it goes from, wow, this was a fun thing to do on a Friday with a couple beers with my buddy, to I need a commercial kitchen, and immediately start really thinking about a business plan and, you know, moving forward quickly.
So now you must have an extraordinary amount of faith. Is this like a blind leap there? You go and you buy all the equipment, you know, from the restaurant place, and you put it in, and you're trying to figure out how to turn the fryer on. Is there any point you just kind of went, what am I doing?
You know, that's another great question. I just did an event at 18 Reasons, and that was the question that got asked over and over again is, you know, where do you have the hurdles, or where do you see the challenges, or do you ever question yourself? And I think that's something that entrepreneurs repeatedly do if they're realistic, right? And I think that's a great thing to do, but I don't think you want, at the end of the day, look at the hurdles so much that they stop you.
Okay.
Right.
So you just acknowledge them.
Right.
And then walk through them.
Right, exactly.
Because if you bury them and you don't think about them, then they're going to creep up and just kind of like overtake you. So you have to look at it and go, I still want to do it.
Well, you know, I think there's always a fine line between being an optimist and being a realist. You know, like you want to be optimistic, but you also at the same point want to be realistic. You know, I think I can do it, but if the chips aren't good, for instance, or if they really don't taste bacony, or, you know, if you're ignorant, or you're naive about some part of it, I think that ends up, like you said, creeping up and then comes back to you.
It always, if you don't deal with stuff, it always comes back to you. I want to know, how do you get all that bacon in these chips? Because I'm still eating them, and I usually don't eat chips, but these are really good, and there's bacon. I mean, real, like bacon. I wish you could smell this. Can you smell it? No, you should be able to. How do you get the bacon in there?
You know, there's a little bit of a secret there, but the bottom line is I do use a ton of bacon.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
literally.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a lot of bacon, and you know, it took me. That was one of the hurdles. You know, as you said, I don't have a chef background, but you know, there's a lot of research into how to really infuse the bacon flavor into the chip, and that was part of the learning curve.